The truth is, before you even step out onto the grass, there is this very specific silence in the tunnel.
Right. The calm before it all starts.
Exactly. I mean, it does not matter that there are 80,000 people screaming in the stands just outside. Inside that concrete hallway, it is completely quiet. You just hear the sound of the metal studs, clicking against the floor.
Yeah, the distinct echo.
You smell the wintergreen muscle rub. You feel the heavy breathing of the guy standing right next to you. And in that moment, your mind, it just goes completely blank. Because you are trying to calculate the exact geometry of the next 2 hours of your life.
That's a fascinating way to put it, calculating the geometry.
It really is like that. Because, today we are taking a deep dive into Sunday, July 19th, 2026, MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. The grass is cut perfectly to the millimeter.
A perfect surface for what was about to happen.
Yeah, you step out into those blinding lights, and you can instantly feel the moisture on the blades of grass under your boots. Just by looking at it, exactly how the ball is going to skip. It is the FIFA World Cup Final. Spain versus Argentina.
The two absolute titans of global sport.
Right, and it is a clash of two completely different ways of understanding the world, really. Today, our mission is to explore the architecture of this rivalry. We are going to look at the tension between this flawless mechanical structure and a chaotic, almost desperate instinct to survive.
It truly is the pinnacle of sporting conflict.
Yeah.
And, what is so compelling about this matchup for me is that we are looking at something far larger than a single football match.
How so?
Well, through the historical data, the tactical tracking, and even looking across entirely different sports, we can see this distinct pattern emerging. It's the collision of two opposing philosophies. Spain operates like a perfectly calibrated engine. Every single movement is designed to dominate space and eliminate variance.
They don't leave anything to chance.
Exactly. Nothing is random. Whereas Argentina, historically, and especially in this 2026 final, they rely heavily on the individual, on the sudden explosion of transition, on the pure, raw instinct of survival when the structure inevitably breaks down.
And if you are listening to this right now, I want you to know that, look, you do not need to understand the offside rule or how to hit a volley to understand what happened on that pitch.
No, not at all. The principles are universal.
Right, because what we are going to explore is how space is manipulated, how the slight turn of a defender's hips can, tell you an entire story about his fear. We will see how the chaotic, unpredictable bounce of ball is either tamed by a rigid system or how it is exploited by just a moment of individual genius. It is a lesson about human nature.
It really is. And my focus here will be to zoom out and explain the mechanics behind those exact moments. I want to look at the underlying architecture, the why behind the what.
The invisible lines on the pitch.
Precisely. Because the structural patterns that define this World Cup final in New Jersey, they aren't actually unique to football. Later on in this deep dive, we will see these exact same principles, the same suffocation, the same geometric dominance play out on a hardwood basketball court in Beijing.
Which is just crazy to think about. It makes you wonder how you approach your own life, Do you try to build a structure that is so rigid and perfectly planned that it simply cannot fail? Or do you trust yourself to find a way to survive when everything falls apart?
That's the core question we're dealing with today.
So to really understand that, we have to start at the end of the journey. The climax of this ideological war, the 2026 World Cup Final.
Let's look at the raw facts of that night on July 19th. They paint a very clear, almost clinical picture of suffocating control. Spain defeated Argentina 1-0 in extra time.
Extra time. The legs are so heavy by then.
Oh, absolutely dead. It was an agonizing, drawn-out affair that was finally decided in the 106th minute by Ferran Torres.
Yeah.
He comes off the bench and scores what will undeniably be the most important goal of his life, securing the world title.
When a goal like that goes in, especially in extra time, it is a physical sensation on the pitch. For the Spanish players, it is pure euphoria, just a sudden release of 100 minutes of pure tension.
The emotional swing is massive.
It is everything. But if you are wearing the blue and white of Argentina, you physically feel the air leave your lungs. Your legs, which were already burning, suddenly feel like they are made of concrete. But, if you just look at that scoreline 1-0, it sounds like it was a balanced fight.
Right, a tight, even match on paper.
Yeah, on paper. But when you look closely at what actually happened on the grass, you realize it was not a balanced fight at all.
Not even remotely. I mean, the statistical disparity between the two teams is staggering. It's almost unprecedented for a World Cup final. The match tracking shows that Spain took the game's first 20 shots on goal.
Wait, 20?
20. They took 20 shots before Argentina even registered a single attempt. Just let that sink in for a second.
That is, I mean, the reality of the pitch when that happens, it's suffocating.
Argentina is a team built around some of the most dangerous attackers in the world, and they did not manage to get a single shot off until the second half of extra time.
It's hard to even comprehend that level of dominance.
Spain also took 9 of the first 10 corner kicks. They finished the match with 65% possession. And Argentina's goalkeeper, Emiliano Martinez, he had to make 12 saves.
12 in a final.
Which set a new record for a World Cup final, just to keep the score level for 105 minutes.
12 saves. You have to understand the psychological toll that takes on a goalkeeper and on the defender standing right in front of him. When you are defending like that, you are constantly under siege.
You're just putting out fires constantly.
Exactly. You are constantly reacting. You are trying to read the attacker's eyes. You are throwing your body into the space to block a shot. You scramble back to your feet, and before you can even take a single breath, the ball is coming right back into your penalty area.
It's relentless.
You never get a moment to just breathe and reset your mind. It is this slow, creeping exhaustion. And to truly understand why Argentina was so deeply pinned back in their own half, you have to look at the contrasting ways these two teams arrived at MetLife Stadium in the first place.
The paths they took couldn't be more different.
Spain's path was like watching a surgeon at work. It was completely clinical. I mean, in the semifinal, they faced France, a team with terrifying pace and attacking power, right?
Yeah.
And Spain just completely suffocated them, winning 2-0.
That semifinal performance against France is a perfect case study in structural dominance. The data shows Spain restricted France to just 0.31 expected goals.
Which is basically nothing.
Exactly. Now, for those who might not follow modern football analytics closely, expected goals, or XG, is a metric that measures the quality of a team's scoring chances based on historical data.
So like a penalty kick would be high.
Right. A penalty kick is about 0.76 expected goals, meaning it goes in 76% of the time. But a shot from 40 yards out through traffic might be 0.01 expected goals.
Right. Prayer, basically.
Exactly. So by holding France to 0.31 over an entire 90-minute match, Spain mathematically ensured that France didn't even create enough dangerous situations to warrant a third of a goal.
They just starved them.
They simply never let France have the ball in areas where they could actually do damage. And then prior to that, Spain beat Belgium 2-1 in a match where they were once again barely even threatened.
Now, contrast that surgical procession with Argentina's tournament. It was the absolute definition of emotional and physical suffering. They did not dictate games. They survived them on sheer willpower.
It was a very chaotic run.
In the knockout rounds, they had to go to extra time just to beat Cape Verde. Then they needed extra time again to beat a Switzerland team that was playing with only 10 men.
Which is exhausting in itself, feeling to break down a low block for that long.
Right. And against Egypt, they were actually losing and had to flip the match with 3 chaotic late goals. And then in the semifinal against England, they were down again, and they had to score 2 goals in the final 10 minutes just to scrape a 2-1 victory.
The physical load of playing those kinds of matches is just immense. You are playing 120 minutes repeatedly and always in these high-stress deficit situations.
Exactly. When you play a tournament like that, it does something to your muscles, yes, but it fundamentally breaks down your mind. It feels like you're playing a match where you are constantly sprinting backward toward your own goal to cover a mistake someone else just made.
A constant state of emergency.
Yes. You feel the lactic acid building up in your calves, your lungs are just burning, and you are functioning purely on adrenaline and a desperation of the moment. Meanwhile, Spain's path to the final. It looks like they were just passing the ball in a gentle circle during a Tuesday morning training session.
Very little friction.
Because they made the ball do all the running. And look, the ball never gets tired. So when you arrive at a final with that massive disparity in physical and emotional energy, the game is almost decided before the whistle even blows.
That is the critical point right there. Because that energy disparity, it wasn't an accident. It was not just the luck of the draw or some quirk of the tournament bracket. It was the direct engineered result of Spain's tactical philosophy.
It's by design.
Entirely.
Sure.
Spain uses ball possession not just as a tool to create scoring chances, but as a weapon to systematically exhaust their opponents. They inflict physical and mental fatigue by forcing the other team to just chase the ball endlessly. And that leads us perfectly into the actual mechanics of this final. How did Spain execute this suffocation on the biggest stage?
This is where we have to talk about the concept of juego de posición, positional play. Under their manager, Luis de la Fuente, the Spanish national team has refined this into an absolute art form.
It really is the culmination of decades of tactical evolution.
It is. It's a philosophy born in the academies of Spain, particularly La Masia in Barcelona. It is not just about keeping the ball for the sake of it, you know. It is about where you keep the ball, the precise distances between the players, and how you use possession to organize yourselves defensively while you are attacking.
We really understand juego de posición. I want you to imagine the pitch is divided into a strict grid of zones. The fundamental rule is that players must occupy these zones in a way that always creates a numerical advantage, like a 3 versus 2 or a 4 versus 3 around the ball.
You always have an extra man.
Always. In the 2026 final, the tracking data highlights Spain's massive midfield overload. They operated with a core trio of Rodri, Fabian Ruiz, and Dani Olmo. And the volume of their passing is just difficult to comprehend.
It's dizzying when you're out there against it.
Ruiz averaged over 84 passes per match in the tournament. But what is truly demoralizing for an opponent is that it isn't just the midfielders passing the ball. Spain's center backs, Paco Barci and Aymeric Laporte, they averaged over 81 passes per match themselves.
I mean, when you are out on the pitch defending against a system like that, you physically feel the weight of their passing. It has a rhythm, tick, tick, tick. You try to close down the space, or you look at the Spanish midfielder, you read his hips, you see his shoulder drop, and you think, I have him, I can intercept this pass.
But you don't.
No, because by the time your brain sends the signal to your legs to make the sprint, the ball is already gone. It is at the feet of the next Spanish player who is already looking for the next pass. You are constantly arriving half a second late. You are chasing shadows.
Which drains you emotionally as much as
it breaks your spirit. And against this relentless machine, you have Argentina, managed by Lionel Scaloni. And their setup is built on an entirely different premise. They actually embrace the chaos.
Yeah, Argentina's structural design is heavily reliant on transitional moments, that split second right after the ball changes possession. They use their fullbacks, Nahuel Molina and Nicolás Tagliafico, to push very high and very wide up the pitch.
Stretching the field as much as possible.
Exactly. The tactical goal here is to stretch the opposition's defensive line horizontally, making it as wide as possible, specifically to create open space in the center of the pitch. That central space is the hunting ground for Julian Alvarez and, crucially, their captain, Lionel Messi,
who came into this final having already scored 8 goals in the tournament, 8 goals in a World Cup.
He's having a transcendent tournament.
The man was carrying the entire creative and emotional burden of a nation on his shoulders. But that is the Argentine plan, right? The entire structure is designed to suffer, to win the ball back, and then immediately find Messi in that tiny half-meter of space between the midfield and the defense, where he can just turn and see the whole pitch.
But Spain knew this. They analyzed this tendency completely. And this is where the grand tactical collision of the final really occurs. The analysts refer to it as structural exhaustion.
Structural exhaustion, I love that term. How exactly did Spain take that Argentine instinct to survive and turn it against them?
Well, they neutralized Argentina by exploiting the very thing that makes Argentine defenders so fierce in the first place, their aggression.
They are warriors.
Right. Argentina has 2 phenomenal, highly combative center backs in Christian Romero and Lisandro Martinez. They are front-foot defenders. Their absolute instinct is to step aggressively out of the defensive line, close down the attacker, and win the ball back instantly.
To smash the play before it develops?
Exactly. So Spain knew this. What do? They used fluid rotations with their forward players, Mikel Oyarzabal, Olmo, and Alex Baena. Instead of staying high up the pitch near the Argentine penalty area, these Spanish forwards would constantly drop deep into the midfield.
Oh, they were baiting them.
They were completely baiting Romero and Martinez. They were daring the Argentine center backs to follow them out of their central defensive positions. And when Romero or Martinez took the bait and stepped up to aggressively challenge for the ball, they left massive gaping holes in the defense right behind them.
It is the perfect trap. Because as a defender, your instinct is to protect your house, you know. You see the ball, you see the attacker receiving it, and your blood just runs hot. You want to step forward and smash the ball away.
It's hardwired into them.
But the moment you take those 2 steps forward, you have broken the structural integrity of your defense. You have left a space that another Spanish player is already sprinting into. However, a system like Spain's, look, it is not without its own risks. There is always a vulnerability.
True. No system is perfectly invincible.
And in this match, it was the fullback dilemma. Spain played Pedro Porro on the right and Marc Cucurella on the left. Porro is incredibly dangerous going forward. He even scored the killer second goal in the semifinal against France. They pushed very high up the pitch to join the attack.
Creating that overload we talked about.
Exactly. But when your defenders are that high up the pitch, you leave an ocean of green grass behind you. And historically, that exact space is where Argentina comes alive. They live for that moment of transition, hitting a long, beautiful pass into that empty space.
They do. And that is the calculated mathematical risk that Spain's manager, Luis de la Fuente, was willing to take. But here is the true genius of Spain's system in this final. They didn't just prepare to defend Argentina's counterattacks into those empty spaces. They preemptively killed the counterattacks by completely starving Argentina the ball.
Starving them before they could even look up.
Right. And they did it by taking advantage of a very specific and very risky structural choice that Argentina made regarding Lionel Messi.
You are talking about the concept of a high-rest defense.
Exactly. The tactical data shows that Argentina allowed Messi to stay completely detached from their defensive shape. When Spain had the ball, the other 10 Argentine players would drop into a compact, low defensive block near their own penalty area.
Suffering together.
Suffering together, yes. But Messi was allowed to stay higher up the pitch, conserving his energy. The idea was to keep his legs fresh, so that the split-second Argentina won the ball back, he was immediately available to launch a devastating counterattack into the exact space left by Spain's advancing fullbacks.
Because when you are out there and you know you have a player who can change the game in a microsecond, you want him fresh. You need him fresh.
The logic makes perfect sense on paper.
It does, but here's the reality of the pitch. If you leave your best player completely out of the defensive work to save his legs, you are defending with 10 men against 11. So tell me, how does a team like Spain, a team completely obsessed with numerical superiority, mathematically exploit that 10 versus 11 setup to slowly, painfully suffocate you over the course of 120 minutes?
It's cold, brutal mathematics. Because Messi isn't participating in the pressing phase, Spain essentially has a permanent, guaranteed numerical advantage in the very first phase of building their attack.
Free possession.
Absolutely free. Their center backs, Cubarsí and Laporte, along with Rodri dropping deep, can pass the ball endlessly without facing any real pressure. They dictate the tempo completely. Because Spain is using the full width of the pitch, they force the remaining 10 Argentine outfield players to constantly shift side to side, just trying to cover the open spaces.
Like a pendulum.
Yes. Over 90 minutes, and then bleeding into extra time, those 10 Argentine players are essentially running a collective marathon, just chasing the ball. By the time one of them actually manages to win the ball back and looks up to find Messi for the counterattack, their legs are gone.
The pass is heavy.
They're physically too exhausted to sprint forward and support him. The transition just dies before it even has a chance to begin.
It's brilliant, and it is incredibly cold. You are literally watching an entire team's legs grow heavy in real time. You are watching their spirit drain away with every completed 5-yard pass.
It's tactical asphyxiation.
It really is. But, the most fascinating part of all of this ability of Spain to exploit this exact structural weakness, to use the football as a tool of physical exhaustion. It is not a new invention.
No, the blueprint has been there.
To truly understand what happened on that pitch in New Jersey in 2026, we actually have to rewind the clock 8 years. We have to go back to a night in Madrid that still deeply haunts Argentine football.
March 27, 2018. The Wanda Metropolitano Stadium in Madrid. It was billed as an international friendly match in preparation for the 2018 World Cup, but, well, it turned into a historic massacre.
Spain 6, Argentina 1. Even just saying that scoreline out loud, it feels heavy.
It's a shocking result for a top-tier nation.
For a nation with the footballing pride of Argentina, a 6-1 defeat is an open wound. Let's look at what actually happened that night. Isco, the Spanish midfielder, scored a hat-trick. Diego Costa, Thiago Alcantara, and Iago Aspas all found the back of the net. Nicolas Otamendi scored a single meaningless goal for Argentina. It was an absolute demolition.
It was a demolition. And when you look at the tactical setups, the managerial contrast that night was just staggering. Argentina was managed at the time by Jorge Sampaoli, and the tactical failure of his system against Spain was comprehensive.
He got it completely wrong.
Completely. Sampaoli instructed Argentina to play a high-intensity press. He wanted his attackers to aggressively chase the ball high up the pitch, right near the Spanish penalty area. But the fatal flaw was that Argentina lacked what we call vertical compactness.
Vertical compactness.
Yeah.
You know, if you have never played in a pressing system, it is hard to visualize how important this is.
How would you describe it?
Well, imagine the entire team is connected by a short rope. If the forwards sprint ahead to press the ball, the midfielders and the defenders must immediately push forward as well, squeezing up to the halfway line. You have to compress the space so that the opponent has nowhere to pass.
All moving as one unit.
Exactly. But if your forwards sprint ahead to press and your defenders stay deep near their own penalty area because they are scared of the space behind them, the rope snaps.
And you're left with a massive gap.
You leave this vast, empty ocean of green grass right in the middle of the pitch. And looking at the players Argentina had on the pitch that night in 2018, it is completely obvious why they could not execute that compact press.
The personnel just did not match the tactical ambition at all. The Argentine midfield trio that night consisted of Lucas Belia, Ever Banega, and Javier Mascherano.
Legends, honestly.
They were fantastic players, absolute warriors in their prime, but they did not have the technical retention to hold the ball against Spain's midfield. And more importantly, they lacked the legs to cover those massive spaces Sampaoli was leaving open in the middle.
The pitch was just too big for them.
It was. And the defensive line, players like Marcos Rojo and Mascherano, who often dropped into defense, they were brutally exposed for their lack of lateral speed. Furthermore, the match reports from that night heavily criticized Gonzalo Higuain, who was leading the Argentine attack.
That's a tough role.
He was criticized not just for poor positional awareness, but for a lack of sustained physical effort in the press.
And look, that is the cardinal sin against a positional machine like Spain. If you decide to press them, every single player must commit with maximum intensity.
You can't half-press Spain.
No. If even one player drops their work rate by 5%, if one player's half a second late, the entire system collapses. Spain just bypasses the first man, and suddenly they are running full speed at your terrified defense.
Which is exactly what happened over and over.
But there is a detail from that night in Madrid that is deeply poignant. Lionel Messi actually missed that 2018 match due to a minor injury. He was in the stadium watching from a private box, and the cameras caught him with his hand over his mouth, staring in absolute shock as the goals just kept pouring in.
That image really defined the aftermath of the match.
You have to imagine what that feels like, to watch your teammates, your brothers, being systematically torn apart on the pitch, and you are trapped behind a pane of glass, unable to step onto the grass and change the rhythm of the game.
It must have been agonizing to see the structural flaws exposed so violently. But when we analyze the geometry of that 2018 match, the patterns directly foreshadowed what would happen in the 2026 final.
I want to draw a parallel here because playing against Spain's midfield, whether it's the 2018 version with Thiago and Isco or the 2026 version with Rodri and Pedri, it feels exactly the same.
In what way?
It is like trying to catch water with your bare hands. The harder you squeeze your fingers together, the more aggressively you press, like Sampaoli's chaotic high press in 2018, or Romero aggressively stepping out of the defensive line in 2026, the faster the water slips through the gaps you leave behind.
That's a perfect analogy. The aggression actually creates the vulnerability.
Exactly. So when we look at the trajectory from 2018 to 2026, I have to ask, did Argentina learn anything from that humiliation in Madrid, or did Spain just perfect the exact same trap?
That is the essential question of this rivalry. Argentina certainly adapted. Under Lionel Scaloni in 2026, they did not naively attempt a disjointed high press like they did under Sampaoli in 2018.
Scaloni's too smart for that.
Scaloni recognized the danger, so they sat much deeper in a low defensive block, trying to absorb the pressure and deny Spain the space behind the defense. But Spain's trap evolved as well.
They didn't need to counterattack.
Right. They didn't need to bypass a chaotic high press in 2026. They just needed to methodically, patiently pull apart a disciplined low block. The underlying principle remained absolutely identical. Use positional superiority, endless passing, and geometric manipulation to stretch the opponent's defensive structure until the physical fatigue causes a mental error.
You just wait for the mistake.
You force the mistake. And what makes this Spanish philosophy so truly fascinating is that this trap, this method of suffocating an opponent through spatial dominance, is so universally effective that it actually transcends the sport of football entirely.
Yes, this is the part of the story that I find absolutely mesmerizing. We are leaving the grass pitch and we are pivoting to the hardwood. The date is September 15, 2019. The city is Beijing, China.
The FIBA Basketball World Cup Final.
Exactly. And who are the two teams walking onto the court to fight for the World Championship? It is the exact same matchup. Spain versus Argentina.
The symmetry is incredible, and honestly, the outcome was equally decisive. Spain won that basketball final 95-75 to claim their second World Cup title, their first having come back in 2006.
They were just dominant.
They were a machine in that tournament, finishing with a perfect 8-0 record.
The details of this basketball match are striking when you lay them next to the football matches. Look at the key performers on the court. For Spain, you had Ricky Rubio, who was named the tournament MVP after dropping 20 points in the final.
He ran the offense beautifully.
You had Sergio Llull scoring 15 points, and you had Marc Gasol, who was having a legendary year, anchoring the team with 14 points, 7 assists, and 3 block shots.
An incredible all-around performance.
In fact, Gasol became the first player since Lamar Odom in 2010 to win an NBA championship and a FIBA World Cup in the exact same year. For Argentina, they fought with the same desperate survival instinct they show on the football pitch.
They definitely showed heart.
Gabriel Dex scored 24 points, Nicolas Laprovitola had 17, and their dynamic point guard, Facundo Campazzo, fought for 11 points and 8 assists.
But despite the individual brilliance and the sheer heart shown by the Argentine basketball players, the tactical parallels between this 2019 basketball final and the 2026 football final are terrifyingly similar.
It's like watching the same script.
It really is.
Yeah.
Spain employed the exact same philosophical blueprints across two completely different sports.
Yeah.
Let's look at the first parallel, smothering the primary outlet.
Right.
In the 2026 football final, Spain methodically cut off every single passing lane to Lionel Messi, isolating him from the rest of the team. In the 2019 basketball final, Spain's defense completely swarmed Argentina's elite playmaker, Facundo Campazzo.
They just surrounded him.
They denied him the ball, they trapped him off screens, and they limited him to just 11 points on an abysmal 20% shooting from the floor. They identified the creative brain of the Argentine team, and they structurally choked off its oxygen.
It is the exact same principle. If you stop the brain from functioning, the body dies. It does not matter if you're wearing cleats on grass or sneakers on hardwood.
What was the next tactical parallel? Exploiting age and the limits of physical endurance.
The physical toll.
Yes. In 2026, Spain's relentless side-to-side ball movement drained a 39-year-old Lionel Messi, making it physically impossible for him to impact the transition game late in the match. In 2019, Spain systematically suffocated a 39-year-old Luis Scola, the legendary Argentine power forward.
Scola was unbelievable in that tournament up until the final.
He was, but Spain forced Scola to defend endless pick and rolls, making him switch onto smaller, faster guards. They held Scola to 1 of 10 shooting from the field until very late in the third quarter. In both sports, Spain forced the older, generational Argentine talents to expend all their energy defensively, completely stripping them of the legs they needed for offense.
That physical toll, it is universal. The feeling of your lungs burning, of your knees feeling heavy, it is the exact same sensation on a basketball court as it is on a football pitch when you are constantly chasing the play instead of dictating it.
You're reacting instead of acting.
Exactly. And the final parallel.
Dominating the most valuable physical spaces on the playing surface. Just as Spain completely dominated ball possession and territorial control in the central zones of the football pitch in 2026, the Spanish basketball team completely dominated the paint in 2019.
The center of the court.
Right. They out-rebounded Argentina by a massive margin, 47-27, and they outscored Argentina in the paint 44-30. They own the most critical real estate on the floor.
I marvel at this concept because when you think about it spatially, controlling the paint in basketball is exactly the same as controlling the central channel on a football pitch.
It's the axis of the game.
If you own the middle of the field, if you dictate what happens in that central axis, you dictate the geometry of the entire game. You force your opponent to the margins, out to the sidelines, out to the perimeter, where they are statistically far less dangerous.
You push them to the low percentage areas.
Right. But I want to explore the depth of this. How does a nation's sporting philosophy, this uniquely Spanish obsession with collective structure, endless passing, and positional dominance, how does it permeate two entirely different sports? We are talking about different rules, a different ball, completely different physical dimensions of the playing surface.
It comes down to a deeply ingrained cultural sporting DNA that is taught from a very young age. It is a philosophy that explicitly prioritizes the collective system over the individual superstar, and it values the intelligent manipulation of space over raw, explosive physical dominance.
It's taught in the academies.
Exactly. Whether you are looking at the youth basketball academies in Madrid or the famed La Masia Football Academy in Barcelona, The coaching philosophy is rooted in geometry and mathematics. The core objective is always to create a numerical advantage in a specific zone.
So in basketball, that looks like.
In basketball, a perfectly executed pick and roll or a drive and kick system with an extra pass forces the defense into a rotation, which mathematically guarantees that one offensive player will be open.
Someone is always free.
Right. And in football, a midfield triangle of 3 players overloads a defensive zone of 2 players, which forces the defender to step out of position, instantly creating an open passing lane.
It's the same triangle.
It's exactly the same concept. The fundamental belief is that the ball always moves faster than the man. It is a highly rational, mathematical approach to sport. If our spacing is structurally perfect and our ball movement is precise, your individual brilliance cannot hurt us, because the system will dictate that you never receive the ball in a dangerous area.
The ball never gets tired. That is the fundamental truth that the Spanish system has mastered across multiple sports. So we have the 6-1 massacre in Madrid in 2018. We have the dominant basketball victory in Beijing in 2019. And we have the ultimate suffocation in New Jersey in 2026.
A clear pattern.
When we synthesize all of these events, what does the data tell us about the broader historical supremacy in this rivalry?
The synthesis of these events points toward a grand conclusion about the ultimate triumph of a specific type of highly engineered system. Following their victory in the 2026 World Cup Final, the statistical resume of the Spanish national team is genuinely jaw-dropping.
Tell me the numbers.
They went on a run where they were unbeaten in 38 consecutive international matches. That streak broke Italy's previous world record of 37 consecutive unbeaten games.
38 international matches without once tasting defeat. I mean, when you consider the variance in football, a bad referee decision, a weird deflection, a moment of individual magic from an opponent to go 38 matches without losing requires a level of structural consistency that is almost impossible to fathom.
It practically eliminates variance, and the defensive metrics are even more impressive. During that 2026 World Cup, Spain allowed only one single goal across 8 matches.
One goal in a World Cup.
Yes, that is a defensive record for a World Cup champion. And just to underline the supremacy of their developmental system, following that tournament, Spain simultaneously held both the men's and the women's FIFA World Cup titles, with the Spanish women's team having won the trophy in 2023. We are looking at an era of absolute, undeniable structural dominance.
But if we look back through the history books, the overall ledger between Spain and Argentina in men's football is actually incredibly tight, isn't it?
Surprisingly so, yes. If you look at the entirety of their history across 14 official and friendly matches, the two nations are perfectly deadlocked.
Perfectly even.
There are 6 wins for Spain, 6 wins for Argentina, and 2 draws, both of which ended 1-1. And before the 2026 final, their only other meeting in a competitive match was all the way back in the 1966 World Cup group stage, a match that Argentina actually won 2-1.
Wow, 1966.
Right. But the undeniable trend of the modern era, particularly in high-stakes, high-profile encounters across multiple sports, heavily favors the Spanish systemic approach over the Argentine transitional approach.
So if you are listening to this right now, what does all of this tactical history mean for you? Throughout this entire exploration, we have been framing this as a battle between sustained positional control versus individual brilliance and chaos.
2 ways of moving through the world.
Exactly. And this is a dynamic you can apply directly to your own daily life and your own profession. Think about how you operate when the pressure is on. Do you rely on last-minute heroics? Do you run on adrenaline to meet your deadlines, hoping that your natural talent and instinct will somehow save the day at the final hour, much like Argentina's transition game?
A lot of people operate that way.
They do. Or do you take the time to build a boring, foolproof, highly structured system that guarantees incremental success day in and day out, removing the need for miracles, just like Spain?
It is a profound question of methodology. The Spanish system proves that when a structure is perfected, it drastically reduces variance. It removes luck from the equation entirely. It neutralizes the unpredictable genius of the opponent by simply controlling the environment completely.
But, and here is where I have to push back against the perfection of the system, because the people sitting in the stands, the fans who pour their hearts into this sport, They do not fall in love with a spreadsheet.
No, they don't.
They do not save up their money to buy a ticket to watch a flawless, frictionless mathematical algorithm play out on the grass. The human heart wants the chaos. It wants the magic of a late goal that defies logic.
We want the narrative.
We want to see the ball bouncing wildly in the penalty box where anything can happen. We want to witness the brilliance of an individual doing something that no rigid system could ever predict or calculate. But the data we have just analyzed shows us that ultimately the cold, calculating system usually wins.
Statistically, yes, it does.
So I have to ask you, as sports become more and more structurally evolved, as teams pursue this relentless mathematical, tactical perfection, is it slowly killing the romance of the game?
That is the great philosophical tension at the very heart of modern elite sports. We are deeply conditioned to love the romance of the flawed hero overcoming insurmountable odds. We want to see the individual genius dragging an exhausted, broken team to victory through sheer will.
It's the story we all love.
But at the absolute elite level of global competition, the margins between winning and losing are so microscopic that ruthless efficiency must always be prioritized over aesthetics or romance. I wouldn't say the romance is entirely dead, but is being aggressively, systematically managed and minimized.
Contained.
Exactly. The Spanish system is undeniably beautiful in its own way. It is a breathtaking symphony of synchronized movement, but it is a cold, calculated, clinical beauty. It is a beauty specifically designed to ruthlessly extinguish the very unpredictable chaos that fans naturally crave.
A symphony of movement. That is a beautiful way to describe it. But a perfectly conducted classical symphony does not leave any room for a sudden, wild, improvised guitar solo.
No, it certainly does not.
And I suppose that brings us to the end of our time on the pitch today. Let's summarize the architecture we have unpacked in this deep dive. We have seen how a specific tactical philosophy, one built entirely on ball possession, spatial geometry, and unwavering structural discipline, allowed Spain to conquer the chaotic brilliance of Argentina time and time again.
Across multiple arenas.
Yes, they did it in a football friendly in Madrid in 2018 with a devastating 6-1 massacre. They seamlessly translated that exact same spatial philosophy onto the hardwood court to win the Basketball World Cup in Beijing in 2019.
Using the exact same principles.
And they refined it to absolute perfection to win the ultimate prize, the FIFA World Cup in 2026, by slowly and methodically suffocating the greatest player of his generation, denying him the ball until his team's legs simply gave out.
And as we close the tactical playbook on this exploration, there is one final provocative thought that emerges from all of this data that I really want the listener to deeply ponder.
What's that?
In that 2026 final, Spain provided empirical proof that you can completely eliminate an opponent's transcendent superstar without ever having to outplay them individually.
Because you never let them have the ball.
Exactly. You simply deny them access to the ball by systematically exhausting the 10 players around them. As sports analytics become increasingly advanced, as every single square inch of physical space on a pitch or a court is mapped, quantified, and optimized. Are we rapidly approaching an era where the individual superstar becomes structurally obsolete?
Wow.
Will the singular genius be replaced entirely by perfectly synchronized, faceless collectives of players who simply execute an algorithm?
It is a chilling thought for anyone who loves the magic of the individual. If the grass is perfectly cut, if the geometry is perfectly calculated, and if the system is perfectly designed, maybe the genius never even stands a chance to touch the ball.
It's something to think about.
Thank you for walking out of the tunnel with us today. Keep paying attention to the invisible systems that govern the world around you, whether it is on a football pitch, a basketball court, or in the structure of your own life. Until next time.